Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Today's episode is about something that sounds almost sci-fi, building and sharing native mobile apps directly from your phone. David Oort Alonso is the co-founder of Bloom, a platform that lets you describe an app, generate it fully, front-end and back-end, and then share it with someone via a single link. No app store hurdles, no complex approval loops, just send it and they open a real native app on their phone. In the episode, he even talks about how you can create a shared grocery list app built in minutes, synced in real time across multiple devices. But this isn't just about tools. David makes a bigger bet that software creation will become bigger than media creation, that building apps could become what posting videos is today, and that platforms like Bloom could one day become the YouTube of apps. We also go deep into the founder journey, pivoting from early ideas, getting rejected by Y Combinator 5 times before getting in on the 6th, and raising $3.5 million in 5 days with no pitch deck, just a demo. If you're curious about where AI is headed and how it could change who gets to build products, this is the conversation that is worth your time. David, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. I'm actually a long-time fan of the show. So
that's the best.
So sick to be
here.
I
love it. That's so cool. You're the co-founder of Bloom, basically the app that builds apps. Mm-hmm. Before we go there, let's rewind back a bit and start with your personal background. Your first chapter, you started as an aerospace engineer and also studied in robotics. Mm-hmm. And you were very deep in hardware, so to speak. Prototyping, physical systems. What were the specific moments when it clicked that the phone shouldn't just consume, but actually build apps as well?
Yeah, you're right. I started with aerospace and robotics, which seems really far from what I'm doing now. I mean, I've always been into technical subjects and into engineering, and this is just another form of it. The thing before I go into the app that builds mobile apps and how that idea came to mind, the switch from these more hardware heavy fields to software was really triggered by two things. One is that I just love learning new things. And while I was doing my master's in robotics at ETH, I just started to tinker with building apps. And I got really, really addicted by the speed of iteration. And I was technical, so it was still a big learning curve, but I was able to manage to learn and get myself into that field without a degree or anything. But I just kept thinking there's still so many friction points that would stop other people from being able to express their creativity through software. And I thought, what does it look like if this is really to be made accessible to the masses, to everyone? And then, I just thought the ideal case scenario would be something where a device that everyone has is the interface to creating software and to creating software for that device. Mm-hmm. And then two methods that are super accessible is obviously just talking into your phone or even drawing on your phone, what you want to exist, what you want a UI to look like, and then having that magically appear and be not only a UI that looks like what you want, but it's a fully functioning app, right? So it's an app that can have authentication, that can have APIs, that can have persistence. And then, when you start thinking about that, you think, wow, the software or the creator economy as we know it today, which is essentially MP3 files and MP4 files, has already unlocked so much creativity and so much value. So now you think about what does it look like when software becomes the creative medium, which is a superset of media, right? Yeah. And then what the future looks like in that world is just super exciting. And nobody really knows, but I think it's going to be huge.
I agree. It's a very exciting time to be alive. But you did not start with that idea, right? You had Gifted before and Fireview. Yes. Can you take us a bit back how you started those ventures and
Yeah.
then sort of pivoted your way into Bloom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't start with this grandiose vision from day one. Initially, I just wanted to build simple apps that solve the problem that I had. And since I was just coming out of my studies, I hadn't worked at a company before, I hadn't started a company or built products before. I did the classic first time founder mistake of like going after consumer and just building something that solves a problem for you, but it's obviously not a very niche problem or a huge pain that somebody's going to pay like a lot of money for.
Mhm.
And so the first startup or product that I built was with my current co-founder, and it was called Gifted. It was an app to easily find out what your friends or family wanted for gifts without ruining the surprise. So it was essentially like ChatGPT wrapper where you'd be able to select any of your contacts and it would send a message to them on WhatsApp or something anonymously, right? So it would say, hey, one of your friends from ETH wants to know what you want for your birthday coming up. Can you share some hints? And then you'd be able to like see that conversation that your friend has with Sherlock, we called it. So yeah, that was Gifted. We realized that was more of a marketing play, right? And me and my co-founder both really like building products. And so we decided it wasn't really like the fit for us as founders. And yeah, then we decided to pivot to Fireview. And there we were already in the mindset of like solving problems that we had while building our previous product.
Great.
So with that, we wanted to build like a Notion UI for your application data. So we wanted to make it really accessible for no-code developers, which were already on the rise before things like Lovable and Bloom existed, to manage their back office, right? So one thing was building an app on Glide or Flutterflow or something like that. The other was being able to see, okay, how many users have signed up? How many brands do we have on the platform? How do we manage them? How do we make changes to our database? And non-technical users were struggling with that. So we built like a Notion UI for that. Yeah, and that startup went pretty well. At least we had that feeling of like somebody actually is willing to pay for what we're making here. But it wasn't a huge market initially. We were focused on the Firestore market, a specific type of database. But it still attracted a bunch of users and even the interest of Series A YC startup that wanted to acquire us. But at that point, we were so early that it was really like an acqui-hire. Yeah. So the offer was kind of really conditional on like performance of the product over long term. And yeah, it was really an acqui-hire, right? So it wasn't like a hell yes for us.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I have two very important questions because what you describe is exactly the first time founder journey and also probably all the ups and downs that come with it.
Yeah.
The first question is with the very first idea, Gifted, how did you decide that this was not worth pursuing further? Because for some founders, it's very difficult to make that call and say, I quit here and I move on to something else. How did you make that decision?
Yeah, I think, well, it really helps to have a co-founder. If you're on your own, I guess it's even harder. But if you have a co-founder, you can at least really talk it out and get a sense of like where both of you stand in terms of motivation. Like, is this something that you really believe in, that your gut believes in, that you feel energy waking up for every morning? And I think obviously it also helps if you have other ideas in mind and you can compare them, right? And you can be like, okay, well, we could continue working on this, or we could explore this, which seems promising and we are excited about. I don't know if anyone has really stopped working on something without any idea of what they would do otherwise. So yeah, that's my advice. And especially now, I guess, when there's so many things being completely overthrown by new technology, the bar for what you do, I guess, has to be pretty high because there are so many opportunities, I think.
And how do you deal with the thing of not giving up? Because when something doesn't work, many first-time founders say, I tried it, it didn't work. I now go and get to the corporate job that I just postponed for too long. How did you not give up along the journey and kept going because you were so determined to find something that works eventually? Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I knew for sure, even when we were doing Gifted, is that I really, really enjoyed the experience of working on my own startup and working with my co-founder. Like those things I was absolutely sure about. And I had many references of the past of, either doing an internship or working on my studies or doing my thesis. And I could just like compare, okay, this clearly gives me so much energy. Like I wake up every day, and the people at the student project house know like how addicted I was. And so that fire in me, I knew my main goal was honestly like to survive, to just have enough money, enough runway to just be able to keep trying, keep finding things that might work. And it wasn't hard to keep going. It was mostly hard to find money in some cases, to find investments for products that you weren't fully sure about or weren't taking off. That was, I think, the most challenging part. But I was very sure that I wanted to continue working on a startup.
And I'm sure you had to make some tough trade-offs there, because to survive without really having something that just works yet, you have to try to extend your runway as much as possible.
Yeah.
What were some tough trade-offs that you personally had to make along that journey?
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that was definitely a game changer for me was the student project house, because that offered a free space for me and my co-founder to work. And it wasn't just any space, it was a space where other wannabe founders were at a similar stage, you know, no funding, just idea or even pre-idea, trying to look for co-founders, and all of them were super hungry. So that was one of the key unlocks and like things that I'm most grateful for during that period. I mean, I remember just having to be extremely scrappy and like not spend any money on almost anything. I mean, I would sometimes go to the Mensa and have one of my friends who was still a student like get me meals at a student discount so that I could pay less money on food. Yeah, my girlfriend at that point was also giving me financial support. So yeah, it was, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't do this, right? A lot of people would just optimize for other things. But there's honestly nothing more important to me than that purpose that you wake up with every morning. Like I will do a lot of things. I will sacrifice a lot of things to have that feeling. And yeah, definitely not living a glamorous life or eating out or doing all these other things.
The cool thing is it just doesn't matter, because all you want to do is you want to spend your time building, and then you sleep, maybe you work out, and that's it. But you want to build day and night, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
And this determination of yours also showed when you applied for Y Combinator. You got rejected 5 times before then eventually getting in. What changed between application 5 and number 6 that then finally got you in?
Yeah. So we applied, I think, 2 or 3 times with Gifted and 2 or 3 times with Fireview. And for Fireview, actually, the number 5, we actually got an interview. So we were already like very close to getting an acceptance. But the issue there was the market size, according to the feedback we got from the partners. I think YC really bets on founders that have this grit and that have this very strong chemistry between each other and that are willing to like stick together. Because as I learned later during the batch, one of the main reasons that YC startups die is because of co-founder breakup. And so the fact that Siren and I had stuck together through different pivots, through rejections, at low, living costs and burn rates, they knew that this is something that we wanted to do and that we weren't just getting together to apply to YC once and then giving up if it didn't work. So that helped us a lot. And then the other key unlock was actually finding an idea where there was a strong founder fit and a really big market to go after. Yeah. And with Gifted, founder fit wasn't there. With Fireview, founder fit was there, but the market wasn't big enough, or it wasn't clear how we would expand out of Firestore. And then with Bloom, I mean, there we were really like one of the first players. At this time that we were applying, there were seriously no mobile app builders that we knew about. Yeah. There were nobody that was able to do the demo that we presented during the application. And so we were really well positioned. We had, I mean, there's like a lot of little details that I want to share, which is we had been part of the Convex community, which is this backend as a service that competes with Supabase for a bit. We had built Fireview on it and won a hackathon, and we were in touch with the Convex founders. And one of the founders, the CEO, became an angel investor in us before we got into YC. And he had worked at Bump, which was the startup that David Lieb went through the batch in YC when he was going through YC. and Bump turned into Google Photos eventually, right?
Crazy.
So there's this whole like mafia of people that were initially at Bump and then went to Convex and or to like Dropbox and then Google Photos. And so basically David Lieb knew the founder of Convex, and the founder of Convex knew us pretty well. And so there was also definitely a reference there that really helped us, I think. And that's kind of how it went. Like a few different things came together for that 6th application. And then we did an interview with David Lieb, and then I mean, I can go into that story in more detail as well, but like a day after we got accepted. So it was really fast. It was really fast.
I'm sure you felt very happy when you got that acceptance.
Yeah. I mean, I have a recording of like my reaction actually, because I was at the meeting booth of SPH where I spent I don't know how many hours.
Yeah.
And then, there were all the people that I knew from the community at SPH there to share the moment with me. So it was a very beautiful moment. Yeah.
And I take away, you need to have founder fit to the problem that you're solving. The market needs to be big enough. And then the social proof or the references help to probably make the case.
Yeah, that was probably the last drop. Yeah.
So we are now in 2026, and it's clear we have seen Lovable explode, and it's like vibe coding time, so to speak. What was or still is so fundamentally broken with phone apps that you actually need a solution like Bloom? What are you fixing that platforms like Lovable or others out there cannot do to the same extent?
Yeah. So to really go back to someone that doesn't have any idea about how this works, obviously a web app is very different than a mobile app. They're built using different technologies, and they're also deployed very differently. So it is true that web apps, at this point, it's a pretty cluttered space. There's so many players that are doing web app builders or building web apps. And the publishing experience is pretty straightforward because you just publish your web app to a custom domain and you can host it through many different ways. And it's generally very like free and fast to do.
Yep.
But with mobile apps, there's a few different things that can get in your way. The first thing can already be at the hardware level. Like if you need to build an iOS app, you will need like a Mac to do that, or you will need to use like special cloud services to do that for you. And then there's, of course, the whole piece of like being able to share that app with someone else, right? So it's one thing to be able to run that app in an iOS simulator on your Mac, but it's another thing to have that app on the phone of one of your friends. And if you want to do that, you will have to at least get an Apple developer subscription, which is $100 a year. And you'll have to submit your app to TestFlight, which will take, several minutes or hours. That's just the test flight. Then you'll have to get your friend to download TestFlight and enter an invite code. And then they have the app on their phones. If you want to go to the App Store, then you have to get approval, to the App Store. So if you want to share this app with 20 of your friends or something, it would be quite a tedious process. And so that's kind of the problem that we're solving, aside from, of course, the fact that building the application itself is tricky. And one of the things that we also did pretty early on is that we didn't focus on just building a UI of an application, but we build full stack apps by default. And another thing that I really want to stress about, because this is something I get asked a lot, is like, why would I use Bloom over Lovable? And a clear answer is, of course, if you want to build a mobile app, use Bloom, because with Lovable, you just won't even have the option to publish a mobile app. But the other thing is with Bloom, we're really building universal apps. So we're using Expo as a framework. And that means that if you build an app on Bloom, you can publish it as a web app, but you can also publish it to the App Store. So
nice.
It's just a different foundational technology that we're using under the hood. And that means that you can spend like the same amount of tokens to get like 2 different platforms at the same time. Actually 3. So web, iOS, and Android in one code base, right?
I exactly see the pain points you're describing. 10 years ago, I started my first fitness app. It was my first startup. And we had exactly this painful process of inviting people. And then we had to submit it to the different app stores and they had to get approved. I remember we started first with Android and the iOS app. It took quite a while until it got approved and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was quite a painful process.
Yeah.
So paint this process for us. Now, before painful, you need to have different things. How does it work with Bloom? How easy can it get
Yeah. So we've basically spent several months trying to build like a way of sharing that has never existed before using app clips under the hood. And the way this works is you build an app on Bloom, and this could be through the Bloom web app or the Bloom iOS app that is launching probably by the time that this airs. And there you can, of course, just describe what you want. Bloom will build both the front end and the back end for that application. And then you can literally press share and you get a single link that you can send to anyone, and they can open that app inside an app clip on their phones, which means it will not open as a web app. It'll open really as a native app, but they won't have to like go and download something from the app store. They won't have to download TestFlight. They just get an app loaded inside an app clip, which is iOS proprietary feature. And yeah, and that's it. It takes basically 30 seconds from you having an idea that you've built, literally could be from your phone, to having that app running on the phone of someone else. And of course, it has a backend, right? So you will have synced state. And this is something I can demo for you as well.
We'll check that out and do a proper live demo.
Yeah.
I love this because it's so simple.
Yeah.
And also probably just from a technological perspective, is it only just possible now to actually build what you're building?
I mean, we've been the first ones to build app clips that sideload Expo apps. So yeah, it's become possible recently because the size of, I mean, first there's of course the LLM constraint, like language models have only recently started to become good enough at like building full stack applications. But then app clip sizes have also increased regularly in the last few years, where now you can fit 100 megabytes in an app clip, which means you can have like a pretty powerful app being used as an app clip. And that means that, yeah, I can share with you a link and you open it and you have a native app with a lot of different features right in there. So it has notifications, it has HealthKit integration, it has haptics, it has all these things that you wouldn't have with a web app. So yeah.
Sounds amazing. And I love that basically with your approach, the ideas become the most important thing. And the technical execution is just basically taken care of.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly. And we also want to really shorten that time from you having that idea to being able to validate it with users, because that's something that happened with us during Gifted. Gifted was a mobile app, and it took us like 4 months from when we started to build it to that app running on someone's phone and actually being able to test like, hey, do they like, does it make sense to them? Is it intuitive? Do they actually want to use this app? And now, you can squeeze that time to minutes, which is insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I wonder, we know AI from social media, for example. There's also a lot of sort of repetitive or garbage content, I would say. Where do you purposefully force human interaction or oversight in your creation process to sort of avoid that you just have very bad apps out there?
Yeah, I mean, so ideas are definitely the bottleneck. Taste is also the bottleneck. So if a user just comes to Bloom and gives rubbish input, they're probably going to get rubbish output. One of the things that we do to encourage the user to be more thoughtful about what they're trying to build is we have something called human in the loop, which means if you send a prompt that is really vague to Bloom, it'll ask you follow-up questions. It'll tell you like, hey, can you tell me like for what user is this app, or like what should happen if XYZ happens? Can you send me an image of a reference design-wise that you would want to adhere to? And so, yeah, we are a little proactive in that sense.
Cool. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your fundraising. You mentioned the demo that sort of also convinced YC to get you on board, and they were really impressed. But so were your investors. You raised $3.4 million in just 5 days, basically without any pitch deck, just with the demo.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. That sounds almost too easy to be true.
Yeah. I mean, this was my dream, right? Like I don't like doing pitch decks. I don't like sales. Like I don't.
You want to build.
Yeah, I want to build. And so I like, you know, the saying of choose your hard, right? I wanted my heart to be building something that blows someone's mind. And that is hard, of course, but it's like the kind of hard that I like. I don't like the hard of like, oh, I have a product, it's kind of nice, but I have to make a super sweet pitch deck to convince someone that this is worth investing in, or I have to like do 20 sales calls to like convince someone to try the product. And yeah, in this case, we really had a product that spoke for itself. And so, yeah, we had no pitch deck at all. I would just jump on calls with investors. I would tell them briefly like the story of me and Syrian. And then I would have this famous demo that we have now of a shared grocery list app. I would be on the web app of Bloom. I would show them how we had built this app in like 3 prompts and how it was very nicely designed. It had, real-time sync. It was synced to a database. And then I would be like, okay, cool. Now here's a link. Open it on your phone, and boom, they had like the native app running on their phones with haptics.
Nice.
They would enter the grocery list, they would add items, and they would see that on the web preview. It would like instantly show, it would show in the database, it would show on my phone. And yeah, that made people like really believe in the vision and think super big about what this could become. And we had, some of our angels really helped us close that round because they were making intros saying this is the best tech demo I've ever seen to all their investor friends. And that of course helped a lot. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I wonder, why do you actually decide to get investors or funds in the first place? Because you could have also bootstrapped, especially these days, where you probably also work a lot with AI to code yourself. So why was going the VC way the right way for you instead of just bootstrapping and staying small and very efficient as a team?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's 2 things. One, it's a very competitive market. So building the product isn't enough. You have to build it fast. And so that's tricky. And the other thing is that customer acquisition is expensive because of the cost of running these things and like generating apps. So it's, I guess the combination of the 2 means like we can't have a huge margin right now. I mean, we can talk about longer term business models later, but right now it's mostly at cost, right? And to acquire free users, you have to give them free credits for them to like try and build something simple. And so for that, you need capital. Yeah.
It makes sense. And I feel the more I talk to people these days, they say there are 2 ways to build a company. This middle ground of, okay, we get some VC money and then we see it's sort of dying out. And either you stay super small and a very specific niche. Maybe you sell some cat pictures with prints online and you make a nice margin.
Yeah.
Or you say, we want to own a specific category. We want to really define it and own it. And then you need big VC money to actually be able to do so.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely on the second boat right now where we're trying to go for a whole category. We're trying to unlock a new market. And it's a big opportunity. It doesn't mean that there's only going to be one winner. But right now, like, I mean, even though some of these companies in the space seem like they've made it and they've like won or something, I think we're still just seeing like the initial capture of the market happening right now. So I think it's like going to be so much bigger than what you're seeing now.
Yeah, makes sense. And I wonder, what metrics do you focus on? Because there are so many that you could track, right? Of course, revenue, but also retention, for example, and how many apps were created, how many users you have. What do you focus on right now to really move the needle in the right direction?
Yeah. Right now, we are really focusing on reliability. So it's more focused on the retention piece and on growing with our users so that they don't feel stuck at some point and they have to ditch the platform. Because we definitely want to be at a place where we can kind of be the CTO or the co-founder of the people that join Bloom and start building with Bloom. And we don't want them to give up on the platform because we are set up in a way where, if our users grow, we are hosting the backend for them. So that's kind of our long-term business model, is for them to really run their whole company on Bloom, to have, their development instance and then be able to publish. And then they have like a production instance, and we're managing both the code, but also the backend, right? Like different instances for your development database and your production database, and like helping you with migrations that you have to run, helping you figure out like, what is going on in your production data? Like, are there errors that users are facing? Even being proactive in cases where it's like, I'm noticing that I'm seeing elevated errors in this function. I think there's a bug. Like, should I go fix it? And that kind of interaction. Yeah.
And I feel the analogy you made at the beginning really holds true. So if you look at YouTubers, for example, YouTube is the platform, right? That allows them to monetize and to build the brand, etc. So you are that, but for apps.
Exactly. That's a really good example, because YouTube Studio, right? probably has all of these things that tells you, oh, like, look at the drop off in this video. This is what's happening. Like, you should maybe work on this, or you should update your thumbnail. And so we want to be that kind of co-partner, but in this different medium of software.
I love it. The potential is immense.
Immense.
What are people building? You have already tens of thousands of users. Probably the numbers are outdated every second day we speak. But what are people building with Bloom these days?
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing right now is that we are seeing so many different types of users use Bloom. So there's, of course, the personal software type use case where it's like, you know, my girlfriend and I having shared apps to like track expenses and share things. Or there's like the indie hacker persona where it's somebody that just wants to build an idea that they have in their head. And especially if they're non-technical, this is a huge unlock for them. And in that space, I mean, it's just so cool to see like the variety of apps. Like there's like, you know, everything from somebody building an app to track wildlife in a conservation in Africa to someone building an app for their church community about like doing quizzes for on like the Bible and things like that, to someone building an app for automatically like doing multiplayer push-up counters to an app for like planning trips. It's just like, that's the thing that I love so much about this, that it's if you know, YouTube and phone cameras have unlocked these new formats of media like vlogging and things like that. Now with software, like the space in which people can create and the freedom that they have is just mind-boggling. And that's one of the things that I find the most fun, is just seeing someone build something that you would have never imagined, or for a user group that you would have never imagined. So and then there's of course also bigger teams that are trying to either build apps for clients, or they're trying to prototype things, right? And especially companies that have mobile apps as their main product really benefit from this, because they don't want to go through this whole like test flight iteration loop to get some new flow that they're prototyping into the hands of a user. And so we've had some top YC companies actually reach out to us because they want to have this like ability to, you know, literally from their phone, iterate on a UI, put it in the hands of a user and like get their reaction and understand what is more intuitive.
Super cool. So you also have a lot of analytics in there that you can track.
Yeah, I mean the limit is, there's no limit. You can connect your app to Postdoc if you want. You can do all of that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with security? Because that's often something that people are a bit more scared or afraid of when vibe coding. How do you handle that? Because there's probably a very proactive approach that you can take to also fix that to a certain degree.
Yeah. So there's security at multiple layers. One of them is that if somebody, for instance, shares an app with you through this app clip experience, that is using Apple's walled garden of or like, you know, their own harnesses, because app clips are also something that they built themselves that obviously have some constraints. It's not just like letting any software run on your phone that could do anything at once. So that's one. And that definitely makes it really legit for users. Like they're not like scared of opening an app clip that somebody shares with them. Then there's security on, like, if an app that a user builds exposes data from users in that app, right? Like that type of security. The thing about that we're doing is we are very opinionated about the stack that is being used. So we exclusively build Expo and Convex apps. And since we are power users of those technologies, we know how to set things up in a way that is opinionated and that allows our coding agent to not mess up. Convex as a database is great because it by default doesn't expose the database to clients. So every query that the front end uses has to be written as a TypeScript function, and that accesses the database on the server, right? And then there's a bunch of things like custom function wrappers that you can put in place to make sure that every function is like an authenticated function. You have row level security as well. It's still a challenge, of course, to make it absolutely bulletproof. But yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I wonder about the competition you mentioned before. The competition is fierce. There are new AI startups popping up left and right. How do you manage that as a founder? Do you get paranoid about it? Do you even worry about it? Or do you just focus on shipping faster? What is sort of your approach to that and how you handle competition?
Yeah, I definitely don't try to obsess about it. I try to obsess about our users and our product. And it's obviously a good reminder that we cannot just focus on like building a perfect product and then launching it whenever we want.
No.
At the same time, I am keeping in mind that this is not a sprint. It's a long marathon. And Google wasn't the first search engine, right? So there's a long journey ahead of us, and we are also trying to think a few months ahead. At this point, that's already becoming hard, but like we are trying to see beyond like the initial bubble of excitement, right? Where it's like, oh wow, you can build like nice UIs, but okay, cool, it's nice. People will try that for the first time and it's exciting, but then what, right? Like what after that, like what becomes important? Is it speed? Is it reliability? Do we have to focus on supporting more complex apps because the bar just gets raised, right? Like it won't be enough for a vibe coding tool to just build a simple front end, because again, there's going to be so much else available, and there's going to be so many apps being created that I think the bar for the quality of an app is going to be really, really high.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, those are things that I'm trying to keep in mind. And I'm also trying to think about how to build things in a way where we are positioned to serve different types of users in the long term. Yeah, it is definitely very tricky, and it can definitely cause a little bit of anxiety to be on tech Twitter all the time.
I imagine.
Yeah.
And talking about the bubble,
Yeah.
do you think that we are currently in an AI bubble, or are we just getting started? Because the potential and everything you can do and you can build is just, we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. I mean, there's many different sides of AI, and I'm not sure, like I can't speak for the whole field of AI, like AI for medicine. Is that a bubble right now? I don't know. But
Fair.
AI in the vibe coding space, that's interesting. I don't think it's overhyped. Like I do think, especially thinking about some of the things that we've been thinking about is like how do companies run in the future? And one of the things that I kind of think is going to be the case is you're going to have a lot more single founder or two founder companies that are going to be able to grow pretty quickly. And that those companies are not going to be like companies, aside from individuals, are going to be writing most of their software, or most of the software that they use is going to be generated by them, right? And that's something that we're already dogfooding inside Bloom, where we're really canceling a lot of SaaS subscriptions because we can build a bunch of tools internally.
Yeah.
And when I see glimpses of that future, and if you extend that a little further, then you start thinking about these apps becoming almost like virtual employees, right? It's not just a mobile app in the classic sense that like you enter some data and it stores it and then shows it in another UI. It's like, no, you create an app, but it's actually an agent that has autonomy, that, is proactive, and that you can just like give work to, and then you can monitor it through a UI. But you have full control over the state of that agent, the memory of that agent, how the agent is built. And then essentially you're building virtual employees.
Of course.
And I think like that is just, I mean, I don't know what that's going to do to the market, but it has it's going to unlock a lot of value, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And also fully agree with what you said, that you probably need way less people than before.
Yeah.
So the technical leverage just gets bigger and bigger with that new technology.
Yeah.
And now imagine you combine that with someone who has an audience on YouTube or something. So you have two levels of leverage.
Yeah.
And then maybe even the third one with capital on top of that.
Right.
It's immense what you can build. It's like really, really crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
If you look a bit into the future, you said today you're basically selling your platform at cost. What do you see as a future business model to actually also make a sustainable business out of Bloom?
Yeah. So I mean, in this future where people are building, not only a user-facing app in Bloom, but they're building, their whole product plus the back office and how they manage the product, and maybe even virtual employees that coordinate or do operations for that product in Bloom, all of it is going to be running in our infrastructure. And that's not a requirement, but by default, that's the case. And that's the easiest path for users because everything is kind of managed.
Yeah.
And in that case, we are basically also like a hosting platform, right? And so if Hailey Bieber builds an app on Bloom for her audience, right?
Yeah.
And she is either going to build something that her audience directly uses or something that the audience can directly remix, right? So she can make money. It's kind of like Notion Marketplace or Notion templates, but on steroids.
Amazing.
That's one way. If she builds something that goes viral because her community is using it to, I don't know, chat with like an AI of Hailey Bieber or whatever it is, then she's getting traffic into that app and she's obviously paying us for usage for, I don't know, that app that stores files for her users or stores data. That's obviously going to be something that she will pay for. And then the other layer is API provisioning. So if right now you go to Bloom and you say, I want to build a personal coach that like helps me with XYZ and it's powered by an LLM, you can get that to work in probably a prompt, like a single message without any configuration, because under the hood, you'll be using our API keys to power any API integration that you have, like 11 Labs or OpenAI or anything like that. And so that's another way that it's usage-based.
Makes sense. And then you always have your margin on top of that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You're also hiring aggressively to make all of that work, obviously. And I wonder, how do you think about hiring employees in the age of AI? Because you said before, you can have your own apps that are basically virtual employees at one point. So why do you still need team members?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is a question I'm grappling with every day. Yeah, this is something that I don't think anyone has figured out. And I sent a message to my team at the start of the year. And the TLDR of it was, move fast and break things is out. Perfectionism is in. Like right now, we are in a position where we know that people want what we're building. And we need to have a level of reliability and technical rigor that is super high because what we're building is complex, but also people are relying on it to build like businesses, to build personal apps and things that they depend on, or even their users depend on, right? And so what that means for us is that we're hiring for taste. We're hiring for people that have a really strong intuition and taste about their craft. That could be design taste, right? If we're hiring designers, but it could also be taste in how you write code for Convex and how you architect complex software systems. And yeah, that's the main thing, aside from, of course, being a culture fit.
I love that. Focus on taste. Because that again in itself can already serve as a leverage, right?
Yeah. I mean, someone with taste right now has extreme leverage because they're just, managing like, I don't know, 100 coding agents to do work in parallel.
Exactly.
They just have to know how to steer them in the right direction and how to read code and be able to tell what is good from bad.
Exactly. And another thing I want to tap into a bit is you're building here from Zurich, from Switzerland. Why is Switzerland the right place for you instead of being in San Francisco, for example?
Yeah, there's a few things. Partly it's personal and partly there's also, more strategic reasons. The personal reason is I've been in Zurich for a while. I have a girlfriend in Zurich and my co-founder is also based in Europe and has a girlfriend in Europe. So that's one thing. But the other is we actually did spend the batch in SF and we saw what it was like. And it was obviously really cool. And you could meet with the founders of the products that you were using. You could go to a lot of events. But most of the time, you're behind your laptop coding and building product. And that looks pretty much the same whether you're there or here.
Yeah.
Then there's the hiring situation where in SF, it's pretty easy to find people that want to join as founding engineers. So that's an advantage. But at the same time, they also have a lot of optionality. And it's really hard to retain people in SF. There's a lot of hopping around between startups. Whereas here, it's easier to be one of the hot startups and attract the best talent. The best talent in SF is probably going to be at Anthropic, OpenAI, being paid something that you can't even afford. Yeah. And here it's a bit different.
So if you look a bit into the future on your roadmap, what excites you? What are your immediate next milestones that you're tackling right now?
Honestly, I'm just going to be like, there's so many exciting things coming and I can't hide it. Like it's people that go to Bloom when this episode releases are just seeing like the tip of the iceberg because we are thinking extremely big. We have a project internally that is more in this direction of how do you build not only user-facing apps, but you run your company on Bloom. You have this like founder or startup OS on Bloom, right? And that's going to be super exciting. But then in terms of using Bloom, even if it is to just build one app, it's going to become so much faster, so much more reliable. You're going to potentially have apps that heal themselves, right? You will build an app on your phone, you will be using it, you will maybe run into an error, and then you will see a glow that starts fixing the app for you.
Amazing. Super exciting.
Yeah.
I love that. The future looks bright.
So bright. We're going to, 1,000 apps and more, maybe millions of apps are going to bloom. So, yeah.
I love that. So to wrap things up today, I also want to ask you a few rapid fire questions. You have to answer in maximum one sentence. You ready?
I'm ready.
What is one belief about mobile app creation that sounds crazy today, but will be obvious by, let's say, 2029?
Software creation is going to be bigger than media creation.
I agree with that.
Platforms like Bloom are going to be bigger than YouTube.
Absolutely. What is your favorite real app that a user has built on Bloom so far, and why does it excite you so much?
Yeah, I mean, this is hard, of course, because I've seen so many apps being built on Bloom. But the first that comes to mind is one of our power users that had never built an app before, has an app with Google OAuth that looks extremely clean with a super awesome onboarding that then allows you to enter a destination that you want to go to from your current location. And it's able to like plan a whole trip for you using different APIs. And yeah, it's just like a fully functional app that he's built entirely on Bloom.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I need to check that out.
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah, it's sick.
What was the worst moment for you so far? Were you ever close to say, that's it, I quit, I give up?
I know there's been a few investor rejections that really hurt when we needed them.
No.
But it's like the biggest existential risks are probably me and the relationship between me and my co-founder. And there's definitely been ups and downs. And probably that, those are the worst moments. If there's something where you don't feel aligned or you don't feel like you're working well together. Yeah.
Bootstrapping or VC money?
VC money for now.
For sure. And one word to describe the future of vibe coding in mobile.
Addictive.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I love that. These were all my questions for today.
All right.
It was amazing to really take a look behind the scenes of this rapidly evolving space. And it makes me personally very excited about the future and where we're headed to. I think there's so much to come and to see and to play around with and businesses to be built. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
No, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see what everyone's going to build.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.